it's been about 3 years now. So I'm trying to look back through the memory bank there. It only took about 4 days for banana smoothies to start to really hit the spot.
Wow.
Um, I started to notice, I was still going to the bathroom 8 times a day. I was incontinent. I wore adult diapers for a while, which I will happily mention because here I am now.
Yeah.
But I want to say it took about 6 months for the healing because I was so inflamed. They were talking about taking my colon out. Well, I guess first off, I was once where they were, at least in the skepticism department,
Mm.
unsure that a plant-based diet could work. It's not so much about what you have to do, it's what you get to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
find this applies to the diet as well. It's like I don't have to eat all these healthy foods. I get to eat all these healthy foods.
Correct.
I mean, like I'd said before we started the recording, I could never crack 300 pounds at the same weight I'm at right now on the bench press, but just 2 days ago took a little bit of beats before my workout and hit 315 on the bench like it was nothing.
All right.
So bigger, stronger, leaner, it's cheaper, it's healthier, it's ethically superior, it's philosophically sound. I'm like, man, there's just no downsides.
Hey guys, welcome to a new video. We have a special guest on our channel today. His name is Charlie, and I'm just going to do a little bit of an interview with Charlie, and he's going to talk to you about his journey on how he overcame ulcerative colitis through a plant-based diet and his bodybuilding that he's into, and how he's been able to gain so much muscle, etc., etc., and how much protein he needs, what he's eating. We're going to be talking about that. So. Let's start off, Charlie, with
Mhm.
your journey. How did you come across a plant-based diet, and talk about, yeah, how you found this lifestyle and the solutions, or I guess from when you were diagnosed, what kind of medications you were taking, etc. And
Mhm.
then we'll go on to some other questions. But let's start off with that. So, how did you find a plant-based diet, and we'll go from there.
Right, right. Well, thanks for having me for the interview. First things first there. Um, I found out about a plant-based diet because my mom had recently switched from paleo to a more plant-based diet, and that got me a little bit curious. Just looking through YouTube, I started searching vegan bodybuilding just out of curiosity. I came across Mr. John Venus, um, also vegan gains, Derek Simnett, a fellow by the name of Corey McCarthy. Um, let's see, Nimai Delgado, of course,
Mm-hmm.
of the Game Changers renown. And I got a book from my mom on vegan bodybuilding. I think it's something about muscle and strength with vegan bodybuilding. But yeah, from there, I just kind of got more and more interested in it.
Right, and so after seeing all this stuff, you didn't really switch to plant-based diet. You just included more plants in your diet. Obviously, you were still, I guess, you were still doing bodybuilding before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you were gaining or bodybuilding and eating the
Hmm.
chicken, broccoli, the standard sort of bodybuilding diet,
Right, right.
and you didn't really think that you could build muscle on plants at all.
Yeah, of course, my novice concern was the protein amount. I was about 200 pounds, same weight as I am now at the time, far less muscle actually.
Right, right.
And I was like, okay, well, if I'm eating 200 grams of protein right now and I'm struggling to get lean and get my body fat down, I was like, man, how am I going to get 200 grams of protein from plants with all that fiber? Of course, I know better now. I know it's not really an issue at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
But,
yeah, right.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, um, so you found out about plant-based diet and you did some research, obviously, and
Hmm.
then you got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Now, maybe you want to
Hmm.
just touch on that and how that came about, and obviously you didn't know what it was before, and
Hmm.
then I think this was in 2016 you got diagnosed. So maybe just talk about
Right.
that and how you proceeded to go with what happened. Yeah.
hmm Right. So, at the time, it's funny. I'm going to mention a lot of YouTubers here. I was actually very interested in Greg O'Gallagher, Kino Body, because I mean the dude sells a good product. He's really lean and shapely. So it's like, man, I want to maybe get that way.
Hmm.
But on another part of my brain is I was like, could I do this on plants? And it took me a few months to wrap my head around the fact that maybe I don't need, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight like I thought I did. And gosh, I must have been following a plant-based diet. Well, mostly plant-based, I'd say. I maybe had cut it down to meat once every 3 months leading up to my initial flare-up of ulcerative colitis. Um,
So you
happening
were pretty
in
healthy by eating these
mm,
plants, but you still were eating that meat, and you still got kind
mhm.
of you still got a flare.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right,
So
right,
I pretty much cut it down to just eating fish and
right.
then plants.
Oh
So
wow, yeah,
I know there's a word for that, but yeah, that's where I fell on the spectrum at the time. But yeah, then I started to continue the intermittent fasting, and this was because of Mr. Kino Body there.
right, right.
I was like, it's not that intermittent fasting is a bad template, but at the time I had just naively believed another thing, which was, oh, if I eat 2,000 calories to try to get shredded on a animal product based diet, then surely I only need 2,000 on a plant based diet, which eventually led to intermittent fasting 8, 10 hours a day. And then I'd try to eat a half of a pressure cooker of just beans and rice and whatever frozen veggies I could throw in at the end of the
Right.
day.
Right.
And surprise, digestive issues came about.
Right. So you were diagnosed. So you obviously were bleeding, or you had blood in your stool, and you kind of
Yep.
were like, "What's this? What's happening?" And
hmm
you didn't really know of it, and you just carried on. I mean, a lot of people do that. I did the same thing when I got first saw blood in my stool. It came and went. Nothing really.
Right.
Didn't feel any pain.
hmm
It wasn't kind of affecting me when I first saw it. But then obviously, things got worse and worse. And how did that come
hmm
about for you?
It's about the same experience, really. I had just deadlifted about 500 pounds the day before I had seen blood in my stool. So I had a buddy who had torn something internally, and I was like, man, maybe I just got a little internal hemorrhoid going, that intra-abdominal pressure.
Hmm.
Um, and then the bleeding just kind of never stopped. It started as like a very light pink, and then it turned the color of my shirt, and then more scarlet. And I started to get a fever, loss of appetite. And then I started to make things worse because I didn't know ulcerative colitis was even a thing.
Hmm.
I actually just kept up the fasting. I noticed I was a little bit less energy. I know now I was starting to get anemic, but I'd start sleeping more, taking more naps, and I was actually starting to switch over to more meat because I was like, oh no, how am I going to make up the calories?
Hmm.
So it was still a lot of beans, a lot of rice, fruits, veggies. But then because I'd be 600 calories shy for the day, I'm like, oh no, I need to eat like a piece of chicken or something.
Right.
And
And
then surprise, it just got worse.
yeah, right. So then you obviously went to hospital.
hmm
Doctors obviously did all these tests, and you were diagnosed. Did a scope? I'm presuming.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Man, I was so out of it. After the initial blood in the stool, I want to say there was 2 weeks where, yeah, it was about blood in the stool. Then 2 weeks later, I ended up in the hospital.
Oh wow.
But 11 days before getting to the hospital, I had managed to lose about 40, 45 pounds that I did not have to lose.
Right.
I went from 190 pounds, or no, I want to say about 195 down to 148 pounds at my smallest.
Oh wow.
And yeah, if not for my mom taking me to the emergency room and then getting checked into the hospital, probably would have died, honestly. They had said that I had lost, I want to say like 4 units of blood.
Phew.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a fever of almost 102. So I was extremely like delirious and out of it. So I vaguely remember her wheeling me into the ER and then them going, hey, what's going on, and running some tests, and 2 days later, hey, so you've got ulcerative colitis, and I'm like, what's that?
Yeah. What was your hemoglobin at the time? You said some crazy number.
Oh yeah, yeah. So a normal person's hemoglobin like ratio or rating, however they measure it, is 12 to 14, and mine got down to 5.2
Wow.
because 10 times a day I was just evacuating blood, basically.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. And this is
Mhm.
before you started to even change the think about diet for ulcerative colitis, wasn't it? It was just there was no
Hmm.
kind of association with diet and digestive disease or anything like that before this. So okay, so
Right.
you went to hospital, they did the
Mhm.
tests, then you were on medications.
Yep. I was on Humira, and that actually continued for, I want to say, about 3 months into my treatment, quote unquote, before they started to realize that my symptoms weren't improving. I was also eating chicken, eggs, peanut butter at the time, so surprise, it wasn't getting
Is
any
that the
better.
diet
But
that they I guess told you to eat?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
recommended. They were
yeah.
like, my C-reactive protein levels of inflammation in the body. They said a normal person's is about 50. Mine was 900.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they were. I know now. I'd seen something on nutritionfacts.org about how that's an indicator that animal products raise your C-reactive protein. You're essentially bleeding out protein as
Hmm,
well.
hmm.
So the doctor's thoughts were, hey, just eat more protein. And me being as weak and frail as I was, having second thoughts about all diet at this
Mm,
point,
mm, mm.
I was just like, all right, well, maybe I'll eat more eggs. So between that and the Humira not working, I was like, all right, something's got to change.
Right, right. And obviously, Humira is like an immunosuppressant drug, which is quite
Uh-huh.
serious. And if that didn't work for you, that's a serious drug too. So you would have been in a really, really bad state, I'm presuming.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so after this happened, you obviously weren't feeling
Mm-hmm.
better. What was your next kind of steps that you took?
Um, well, I guess it is all kind of related to food for me in that regard. I was pretty weak and bedridden. It must have been about 3 months of no fiber, very low fat. Um, the bodybuilder in me kicked in, and I started to track my macronutrients. Um, I found I couldn't have more than 5 grams of fiber a day,
What?
which, oh yeah, for your listeners,
That's
that's
nothing.
like maybe an apple. Yeah. Um, I couldn't have more than 12 grams of fat in a day either. So I ended up getting absolutely sick of white rice, salmon, like cans of tuna, and baked chicken.
Wow.
So yeah, after about 3 months of that, I was just like, man, I really miss vegetables. So started to search on YouTube, came across your channel, and you recommending Dr. David Klein's book. And my mom was taking care of me at the time because I was so weak, I just could not do anything really. Walking 30 feet, I'd feel like I'm going to pass out.
Wow.
And yeah, so I ordered the book off of Amazon, and I kept following your videos and the posts you'd made, and here we are. I just gave it a whirl. Bananas are my favorite fruit, so I learned to love them more.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that look on YouTube and see
Hmm.
see the success that I had with my own journey, and I think it inspires a lot of
Hmm.
people, and I think you've done really well with that, and you obviously saw my videos and found that
Hmm.
hey, this guy's been able to do it, so let's see what I can do, and of course here we are. Um, so right, so you started to implement the healing diet, I guess, of lots of bananas, lots of
Uh-huh.
fruit and steamed veggies and things. So how did things start? When did things start to turn? Like when did you realize that this was like a really good diet, or when did you realize that your bleeding stopped, or that you started feeling better?
Um, I guess. Oh, I'm trying to think because it's been about 3 years now, so I'm trying to look back through the memory bank there. It only took about 4 days for banana smoothies to start to really hit the spot.
Wow.
Um, I started to notice, I was still going to the bathroom 6, 8 times a day. I was incontinent. I wore adult diapers for a while, which I will happily mention because here I am now.
Yeah.
But I want to say it took about 6 months for the healing because I was so inflamed. They were talking about taking my colon out.
Mm.
Um, my diet consisted of boiled broccoli and potatoes for dinner, and the rest throughout the day was pretty much like banana smoothie, blueberries, maybe a little bit of grapes, and then in the summertime, watermelon and some squash.
Nice. Yeah, right. And so you started to see these changes, and
Mm-hmm.
then obviously you would have started to feel better so that you could get back into the gym. So how was that transition period? And then when you started going to the gym again, how did
Mm-hmm.
that feel compared to before?
Um, Man, loads of difference there. So the gym I currently work out at, Planet Fitness, I joined there in February of 2018, but I want to say 2 months prior, I'd been doing kind of home workouts with like P90X and
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
Um, Honestly, I hadn't noticed that big of a change compared to before the whole UC flare up. Just having the strength and not being anemic anymore, being able to build back up to it was pretty nice. I would say it wasn't actually until about year two, so right around maybe, oh, I want to say spring of last year,
Right.
that I started to incorporate a lot of beets into my diet, and then because I could handle those again, and I'm
Mm.
like, man, there's definitely something to this plant-based diet. That's where I started to see accelerated recovery. Um, I had seen quite a bit of muscle growth in the first 2 years, but part of me attributed that perhaps to muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, nowadays I'm starting to notice, just all the carbs, man. I'm eating 800-900 grams of carbohydrates a day,
Yeah.
and let's see. Oh, 2 days ago on a whim, I benched like 315, and I've never done that before. And this was before the UC. I've been into working out for about 10 years. I could never crack 300, and that was on the whole chicken breast, brown rice,
Right.
whey protein shakes. And here I am eating bananas and potatoes and beets and rice, and boom, more weight than ever.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. That's unbelievable to be honest. And I think, a lot of people say, "Oh, you've just gained all your muscle because you were on an
Mhm.
animal-based diet." But you
Right.
basically had a reset with your UC. You lost
Oh, yeah.
quite a bit of your muscle, and the thing is, how do you maintain? It's all about maintenance, and you're
Hmm.
maintaining your muscle, if not more muscle now, and more strength on a
Hmm.
plant-based diet. What do you have to say to those people that say, "Well, you built all your platform on an animal-based diet"?
Well, I've boiled it down syllogistically through philosophy. There's only a few rebuttals left. If they don't want to accept that I gained around 40-ish pounds of muscle, they're going to say it's either muscle memory, steroids, or I'm just one anecdotal case,
Mm,
which I'm so thankful that the Game Changers came out because I'm not just an anecdotal case anymore.
correct. Yeah, yeah. And you guys seriously need to check out Charlie's Instagram because he posts a lot on there, and obviously you'll see what he looks like. And
Right. Yeah.
you pointed out steroids. Now a lot of people are going to be haters, and they're going to be like, "Well, no, you're on steroids. You can't get that big." You know,
Right.
why would you use steroids if at all? I mean, you're doing it
Exactly.
for your health, and steroids
Right.
are gonna make you worse, health wise. So you're all about health, aren't you? So why would you need
Yeah,
to take them?
exactly.
You don't need to take them, obviously.
Well, and something that, like, say, the layman won't understand, it's when it comes to the whole fitness industry and the looks department, it's the same thing where somebody watches a mixed martial arts bout, sees a guy get taken down and goes, "Oh, I'd just stand up." Well, it's the same logical trick they're playing. So, when they get a look at me, for example, pale, pasty, not the greatest lighting right now, and then they see what I look like in the gym, the lighting's nice, everything's all pumped up,
Yeah,
and veins are popping out. They're going to go, "Oh, of course he's on steroids," not realizing, you don't look that way all hours of the day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you, that's the last thing that you would want to do, to put that kind of stuff inside your body as well, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I mean, frankly, I hear it's expensive, and I'm pretty frugal. So that's another thing I like about the plant-based diet is, $20 here in the U.S. gets me a 20-pound bag of white rice. And since I'm trying to bulk, there we go. There's food for like 3 months.
And people say, it's so expensive.
Yeah, yeah,
You just,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
It's,
Well, it
yeah,
can get
potatoes and
expensive. Well,
rice.
it can get expensive if you go out for dinner all the time. But then, if you
Mm-hmm.
compare, if you go get a lamb shank or a pretty good steak or whatever, it's gonna put you down $30-40. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
cheap, So you can't compare. You got to compare apples with apples, and like, what are the
Mm-hmm.
cheapest foods? Beans, grains, legumes,
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, you know, fruits,
Right,
vegetables.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Well, and I mean, oh, sorry, I was
so
just
no,
going to
go for it,
mention
go
real
for it.
quick.
Yeah, yeah, go
I
for it.
even, I kept track of some of this stuff because, a bodybuilding thing again, you got to monitor your macros, your calories, how much it's costing you. Like I mentioned with the 20-pound bag of rice for $20, that 3 months of rice used to be not even a week's worth of chicken breasts for the same exact $20.
Exactly. Yeah.
So exactly, there's something to be said there. If you eat the right foods, it's cheap. If you eat the wrong foods, it's expensive.
And just a point on the rice. Some people say that rice is really
Mm.
bad for you, and it's really bad for your digestion, and then the husk or
Mm.
whatever, or there's anti nutrients in that grain.
Mm.
Have you had any digestive issues since healing yourself with and then going back to eating these foods?
No, actually, none whatsoever. So obviously, I opted for white rice because easier digestibility. I believe it rates around the same as a banana.
Hmm.
And I mean, here recently, so it's been 3 years now. I can have brown rice, whole grains as a whole again, beans again. So yeah, for a guy with digestive issues, and you supposedly can't build muscle on a vegan diet, I'm doing terrible then.
Definitely, well, you can't really see your gains, man. I seriously can't.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
So I'm gonna post some pictures of your Instagram, if that's okay, and
Sure.
just show people
Yeah,
your
yeah.
transformation, obviously, and you can really see the effect of what Charles is doing, because you can't really see what he looks like right now. Um, so let's just go back to some of the questions that I had for you.
Sure.
A lot of people say that vegans are deficient and are unhealthy and malnourished. What would you say to
Hmm.
that?
Um,
Being someone that has been able to build so much muscle, and
mhm.
you would look malnourished, right, if you were on a vegan diet, supposedly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. So I get that a lot with some of my gym going friends or just people because I also work at the Planet Fitness that I work out at,
Yeah, right.
and I come across that all the time. They're very surprised to learn, I'm eating 15 to 20 bananas and potatoes a day, and they go, "Oh, what about the vitamins?" If I were to go with the sarcastic answer, it would just be, where do you think those nutrients came from?
Yeah.
But if I'm going to go with the actual answer, it's the bodybuilding thing. You just teach people how to read a food label. I think one sweet potato's got something like 300% of your vitamin A in it.
You can see this guy. He is not deficient on a vegan diet or plant-based diet. He is getting
Right.
all his nutrition through his food, and he doesn't need to take supplements. I mean, the only supplement that you probably take is B12, I'm assuming, or I mean, you say it.
Um,
Yeah.
well, I do a bit of yeah, B12, of course. Um, I'll get a bit of vitamin D fortified soy milk on occasion.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I do take beetroot powder, or if I can, beet juice. I do kind of consider that a supplement because it helps the workouts. Um, Creatine, that's one
Hmm.
of those for the gym goers. You have to eat something like 8 pounds of red meat in a day to
Wow.
get a teaspoon of powdered creatine. So that's one of those where, like, if you're animal based or you're plant based diet, either one, and you're trying to gain muscle, it behooves you to get some creatine in,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the powdered form.
Right, right.
Um, Otherwise, yeah, I do take caffeinated pre workouts, but I make sure to research some of those.
Hmm.
I know that's a bit of a point of contention, but I'm not really seeing any issues, and it's been 3 years now. I started with the non-stimulant, and I still go between non-stimulant and stimulant-based.
Yeah, but the majority of your bulk comes from food.
Mhm.
Majority of the
Oh yeah,
nutrition comes from
absolutely.
food, and these are just little things that you probably need.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so let's get to the protein side of things. Obviously, it's
Sure.
pretty massive in the community, and how a plant-based diet you can't get enough, or that you have to eat twice as much to get enough. That's just been debunked
Mm,
with the game changers, obviously. But what are your
right.
thoughts on protein? And you don't necessarily eat heavy plant protein foods, do you?
Um, I wouldn't say so much. If I'm eating, well, right now I'm eating about 4,000 calories a day. Um, I'm getting between, oh, what was it? About 80 and 120 grams of protein a day.
Well,
And it's funny, if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast with James Wilkes on there, they were discussing protein requirements. And the only reason I'm, I guess, concerned about the protein was they did mention that bodybuilders and endurance athletes do need slightly higher amounts. Well, it's between zero point 0.8 per kilogram and 1.2 grams per kilogram. I'm at the 1.2.
hmm
I've heard as high as 1.6, but yeah, it's nothing to be concerned about. I was getting the first 35 pounds of muscle that I've put on from 60 to 100 grams of protein a day max,
yeah.
which, I mean, that's half to less than half of what I was eating before the ulcerative colitis, before the plant-based diet, and muscle was my main concern.
Mm, yeah, and yeah, you've just proven that you don't need that much protein to build muscle either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, so there's obviously a lot of controversy. There's a lot of confusion out there. What made you stick to a plant-based diet after seeing all this confusion on YouTube and anti-vegans
Mm-hmm.
and all this, idea about vegan propaganda? Why did you choose to stick to this way of life? And I want to touch on that too, on the
Mm-hmm.
philosophical side of things. You're obviously a vegan,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to pay for the exploitation of animals. So
Right.
let's talk about that. And yeah, so first of all, first question was, why did you stick to a plant-based diet, and why are you vegan?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, to go with the first one, so why I stuck to one is, frankly, the benefits I've seen health wise, financially as well. I mean, just the performance aspect of it alone, checking out nutritionfacts.org and Dr. Michael Greger, he talks about, of course, grilled chicken is healthier than fried chicken, but blueberries are healthier than chicken. So why not eat more blueberries? So it seemed pretty simple logically, and again, that price hurdle. Even if I had thought, maybe I'll go back to buying meat now and again, why would I spend twice the money for something that ended up causing twice the harm, essentially?
Yeah.
And then as for the philosophical side, I'm big into philosophy, and it probably gets said a lot, but I always find it true that if you're really interested in philosophy, you change your thinking to the arguments, not the arguments to your thinking. So I couldn't refute any of the ethical arguments of veganism. So I'm like, well, we're doing this.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone can, to be honest. They can try,
Exactly.
but there's absolutely no justification when you can survive and thrive on a plant-based diet. There's absolutely no need for animal products, and we've already been able to prove that with the health side,
Hmm.
with protein and all sorts of things like that, and seeing yourself, go through what you go through. So
Hmm.
there's really no justification for it at all to eat animals. Um, awesome. So let's just sum up now, or yeah, and
Hmm.
let's just sum up now and talk about how your life is now. So this is, I guess, 3 years on,
Yep.
and how do you feel now?
Um, Man, better than I've ever felt, honestly. I'm sure I'm not the only one to say it, where you thought you felt good before,
Hmm.
and that's relative to where you're at now. I mean, like I'd said before we started the recording, I I could never crack 300 pounds at the same weight I'm at right now on the bench press. But just 2 days ago, took a little bit of beats before my workout and hit 315 on the bench like it was nothing.
All right.
So bigger, stronger, leaner. It's cheaper. It's healthier. It's ethically superior. It's philosophically sound. I'm like, man, there's just no downsides.
And
Um,
not to forget that you've healed a chronic disease, which you don't
exactly.
rely on medication anymore either. So that's another
Yeah,
massive plus point.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I guess you'd say the only medication I'm on is like, I don't know, fruit, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
mm,
Well, there's that quote, right? Let food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy
mm.
food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
All right, so let again just a last few words, I guess. What would you say to
Mhm,
people that on the fence about this, and also because there's so much confusion now on YouTube?
mhm,
What would be your advice for people that are looking on
mhm.
YouTube, and I guess what you've found, and I guess yeah, the advice that you would give to someone.
Um, well, I guess first off, I was once where they were, at least in the skepticism department,
Mm,
unsure that a plant-based diet could work. Um, check out nutritionfacts.org as not-for-profit, perfectly reasonable information. It's logically sound. Um, I don't know. This is one of those where like with my group of peers who aren't necessarily plant-based or vegan yet, I just try to give them the health side and all that good information. Like, hey man, look at how good blueberries are for your blood sugar or something like that. Um, I don't know. I just keep it simple. I like to appeal to the health side, and then we'll worry about the ethics. And because some people, if they don't want to hear the ethics, they don't want to hear it. But everybody wants to hear about that new fun fact about what magical food can do for you.
yeah, yeah, right. Of course, and I think
um,
yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer for me. 7 years on
mhm.
for me too, and I've never felt better. And I'm actually training for a half marathon
Oh wow.
coming next year, so that's going to be a nice little tick off the box for me. But I guess it's limitless, isn't it? What you can do,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you have the right fuel to, I
Hmm.
guess, fuel you to do whatever you need to do, then that's only going to benefit. And I think there's just more and more people seeing the benefits of a plant-based diet and taking it. And
Hmm.
I think another thing to actually talk about is that you want to be um, eating the foods that are whole.
Hmm.
All
Exactly.
processed foods, whether vegan or not vegan, are going to be detrimental to your health. So, keeping it whole food,
Hmm.
plant based. I mean, you can see on Charlie's Instagram, he may be posting some food as well and what he eats. But
Yep.
he wants to eat this way because he wants to be in tip-top shape, and that's why he eats the way he does. It's not about junk food. It's not about oh, you can't eat this and you can't eat that. It's about maintaining your goals,
Hmm.
health and fitness. And that's why you do what you do, right?
Right, exactly. So, I tried a little bit, because it's been 3 years now, pretty much the movement of the bowels is looking wonderful nowadays. So, every once in a while I'll go, man, I'm doing so well. Maybe I want to try like say a potato chip or something.
Hmm.
And then I find, you get that thickening of the blood. I feel all sluggish and just
Hmm.
not as good. And yeah, every time I just go back to, just learning to resist the cravings. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but
Exactly.
you just hop right back on there.
Hmm.
You do what works.
Definitely, definitely, and getting majority of your foods from whole foods is the answer to your health
Hmm.
mentally and physically. I mean, mentally, you don't want to be too strict on yourself because that
Hmm.
can really make have issues when you do that. But give yourself a little bit of fun here and there, and that's what it's all about. It's about living your life, enjoying your life, and make sure you do all the right things so that 90% of the time you are feeling absolutely amazing and getting the goals that you desire. Um, and that's cool. So
Right, exactly.
I thank you very much for coming onto our channel and talking about your journey and sharing your story with us. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be inspired by your change as well. And it's pretty amazing to see how you've gone from zero to hero. And it's really cool to see someone as well with UC
Hmm.
that's been able to bodybuild and get back
Right.
to where they were, if not better, just
Oh
by
yeah,
switching.
definitely better.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, happy to do it. Thanks for having me. Just happy to help share the knowledge. That is something in particular I find is fun to share is that you can get a good physique, you can build muscle, and that it's probably easier than you think. A lot of people are overthinking stuff.
hmm
It's um it's not so much about what you have to do, it's what you get to do. And I
hmm
find this applies to the diet as well. It's like I don't have to eat all these healthy foods. I get to eat all these healthy foods.
correct, correct. And to be honest, it's a blessing, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, and I'm sure that the viewers are gonna really enjoy the story, and yeah, thanks so much for sharing it.
All right, thanks for having me on, man. Take care.